Simply stepping out of your house and being willing to be seen and to experience the world and not isolate yourself is an act of defiance when a system benefits from your fear, your anxiety, and your apathy. My name is Seth, and I'm on a mission to contextualize my experience as a black Brit, but as one who grew up outside of all of the major cities and without community. So this journey is going to be a personal challenge for me to overcome my fear and anxiety surrounding traveling, but also an attempt to break free from the social isolation that black kids like me have historically faced growing up in the countryside. During my travels, I'm going to be attempting to answer some very serious questions like, why do I feel disconnected from society? Am I alienated from my country? And is it by design that I've always felt trapped? And hopefully figure out if a sense of connection that I've been looking for can be found in the city. But which city?
Living outside of the city is cheaper, but it comes at a greater cost.
A lot of people who grew up like me experience alienation on a variety of levels. One is obvious, skin tone, but the other is outsiderness, so to speak. So the first part of my childhood was spent in one house, and it was a council house up until the point of maybe my first year of high school, when my parents just about managed to scrape together enough to get on Thatcher's right to buy scheme. So they acquired the house, but they fell into money problems short after and lost the house. From that point where they lost the house, we fell into the system of temporary accommodation. Basically, you get placed wherever they have space for you, and they don't care if it's beneficial to you or detrimental to you. It's just somewhere to exist. I was still attending the same school, but the problem was now I was almost sort of alienated from the friend group I just started to develop. Add to the fact that I was moved to the other side of the year. So now I'm on the side of the year with like kids from the other half of the estate. They're more middle class backgrounds. So I'm getting on with life, having learning difficulties so I could really focus in school. And then we move again, but we move back to estate A, but a different side of estate A. Similar situation again. Issues with the landlord and the house. The landlord was losing the house to the bank, so we had to move again. And now we're moving all the way to the other side of the town. So all of the kids that I did grow up with at that point, like re-established connections with, were far away. In hindsight, looking back at it, maybe it's not the worst thing that could have happened, because it takes you out of one environment and puts you in another. So you're in a new area and you're kind of like, you're in your shell and there's not really people your age to speak to, so you just get on with it kind of thing. And then we get moved again on the bidding list to a village, which is further away from the town, okay? So now I'm out there in the village and it's just weird, right? It's just nothing but white people, preppies, upper class, middle class, and we're not, right? We're council estate people, poor people, okay? So there's a clear like alienation of class difference between me, us, and them. Being poor in the town is fine. You could just go outside your front door and you'll see your mates on the block, or you'll be able to go to different places in town, all right? You can't do that in the countryside, all right? You walk around outside of the countryside, you will get abuse. I've experienced it in these villages, okay? So that also makes you like isolated, and you become like hyper-surveilled. Existing in a hyper-surveilled life, constantly being watched, constantly being monitored. You can't just be yourself without being hyper-vigilant, all right? Self-correcting. That does something to your psyche. And that is what it's like being a black person out in the villages of white people. So it's isolation, separation, and constant surveillance. That is no way to live. In the background of most people's mind, isolation and loneliness isn't apparent because of the day-to-day noise. No friend contacts at all, like no girlfriend, just college, work, that's it. I get a little job at the shop, so I like start speaking to one or two people, but then I come to find out, oh, these guys that I am speaking to are weirdos and they're like trying to manipulate me and stuff, and it's a mind. Not to mention some really bad shit happened to me in circles and certain friendship groups. Was like, I can't trust none of these people, they're not actually my friends kind of thing. So that puts me in a space of, all right, well, it's just me on my own, and then you ain't got friends, and your parent A dies and then parent B dies, and it's like, okay, so I'm really just out here on my own, so to speak. You start to isolate yourself on top of being isolated by your situation. It's like a whirlwind, a conundrum, if you will, of things happening, right, that just spiral, and then before you know it, you're on your own and you're having mental health issues, right? And all of these things add up, right? And it brings you to a certain pinnacle where you're either gonna break or you're gonna do something mad, okay? So obviously I didn't do something mad. Do you know what I'm saying? I should have, but I didn't, okay? You get there and you're like, all right, now, what is there to do but try to go up from being at the lowest possible place you could be. And then that's where you find yourself starting to study, starting to read, starting to try to reconnect with what it means to be a black person, or what it means to exist where you exist and come from where you come from. And you're just trying to add things together because you ain't got the tools per se from your parents and your friends and your family, right? It's literally just you and the internet. That's like my portal to understanding myself and the world. So it's obvious me ending up in this kind of isolated zone isn't just me, right? It's done through psychological coercion, right? There are people more clever than me who know how to socially engineer. But it takes a lot of learning, a lot of reflecting and understanding and looking and understanding what's going on to realize that. And that plays into the levels of alienation, right? Why do you feel estranged from your country? Why is it when you interact with the world, you interact with the world through a screen and not physically? That's by design. And being a child that never had the opportunity to have community, black community and community with the wider country is also by design. Not my doing, but my choices play into it. I'm not completely blameless in my reality, but can you blame a child for not knowing? As a child, you don't know you're in this deeper cycle of coercion, and you have to reconcile, all right, my choices are my choices, boom, I can work on those, I can make better choices. But the choices that have been made for me in not necessarily in a deterministic kind of way, but in a wider society kind of way, are completely out of my control. But in order to fight that, there are certain things that come along with it. And in order to change that for the next generation, there are a whole nother set of things that come along with it. People of the towns and the countryside are really forgotten. And then when you add the extra layer of being black, it's almost like abysmal. Now, is it my fault too for feeling alienated? Yes, because you are your choices, you know, whether you want to accept that or not. It's easy to put the finger and say, yeah, like life circumstances put me in a place where I wasn't able to connect with people. It's still on me to try and establish connections, but it's like a psychological barrier that I face. Like, it's not really there, but in my mind it's there, that prevents me. On a day-to-day, it's invisible, right? You're not conscious of it, but that thing is always there in the background, and it could be like your past experiences, your past traumas, the things that prevent you from reaching out and being able to make a connection with somebody are always working in the background of your mind, like whether you like it or not. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that is on my part. From where I come from, there are certain characters, there are certain situations that turn you this way, okay? There are things you're going to experience that make it difficult to connect to people.